Cape Town's Royal Cape Yacht Club is without its customary Table Mountain backdrop on the morning of the 2020 Cape2Rio second start day. Coastal fog and almost windless conditions greet the teams making final preparations.
I think everyone's pretty much done. I just need to download the weather, rig the boat and get the sails on deck. We're done.
All competitors, family, supporters, ladies and gentlemen, once again a very big welcome. Today marks the 16th start of the Cape2Rio Yacht Race.
Formalities began at 10 a.m. and the welcome address was presented by Deputy Mayor of Cape Town, Ian Nielsen.
So the City of Cape Town is honoured to once again support the Cape2Rio Yacht Race. Since 1971, this event has become one of the mainstays of our events calendar. Cape Town is the events capital of Africa, and the Cape2Rio race is one of our greatest events.
Race Chairman Luke Scott introduced the teams.
I'm going to call the boats up in the order in which you will proceed through the waterfront and out to the start, from the lowest handicap to the highest handicap. Clayton Craigie and the Veneto first crew of Anjo, if you could come up. Ray Cattell and Stoff Garrett. Third time together. First time double-handed, so we have no crew.
Thank you all, and thank you, Luke, for all your efforts for us.
Next up, a very exciting South African crew, headed up by Siyanda Vato and his team of Zulu Girl.
Zulu Girl Racing, powered by Mazi Asset Management team. And this is us. Please follow us. Thank you guys.
Kilo 40 Angola Cables. May I call up Dr. Jose Callas. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Torben Mulbach and your team from Haspa Hamburg. These guys are quite lucky. They were the chosen ones. It's a great pleasure to receive Italian entry Almagores too. If I could ask Federico Borromeo to introduce his crew.
With the ceremonial firing of the cannon, teams got down to the real business of the next couple of weeks to come. The traditional sail past at Cape Town's V&A waterfront was concluded with this impressive turning maneuver from the 102-foot Almagores 2, with just more than an hour to go before the start in Table Bay.
We're out on the water for the second start in the monohull fleet of Cape2Rio 2020, and they're just a few seconds before the start. It's an all-clear start and a conservative start, with Zulu Girl down on the pin and the heavily reefed 102-foot southern wind Almagores coming through in the middle. Almagores is built in Cape Town and is really using that long waterline length to her best advantage, despite being heavily reefed. Behind her, the Judelfreulich 52, Haspa Hamburg, and the Carabelli 54 from Brazil, Sarava, just to weather of Zulu Girl. And Almagores leads the fleet around the weather mark. She's followed by the youth team from Hamburg aboard Haspa Hamburg. There's an incredible energy in this team, and they've come a long way and made a huge amount of preparation to be on the start line. Next to round is Zulu Girl in close combat with Sarava and the Class 40 Musulo. As Haspa prepared to hoist, you can see it's a beautiful day here in Cape Town, with a consistent wind of about 15 knots from the west. The fleet will sail around 2 marks in Table Bay, in front of a huge spectator fleet, before heading off to the finish line in Rio de Janeiro. Zulu Girl and Haspa Hamburg have hoisted, but Almagores seem to be having a problem with that main halyard as they shake out that massive reef. It's close combat between the Carabelli 54 of Sarava and the Mazi Asset Management sponsored Zulu Girl. Musulo 40 can't resist but join the party. She's a Class 40, sailing double-handed, and quite frankly, in a race, perfect for this class. We're using the ORC rating platform for the monohull fleet in this race, including double-handed allowances. We've derived a specific downwind handicap for the race, which will correct the times based on accurate performance of the fleet in downwind sailing conditions. Here's Ballyhoo 2, a double-handed entry on a modified MUM 36, with Anjo, a Veneto first, just below them, with their multinational adventure of a lifetime attitude. Saravat prepared to hoist their big green ASIM. This Brazilian boat has overcome tremendous adversity to make it to the start line in time. Saravat is representing the Yacht Club do Rio de Janeiro, which will be our finishing line club. Hats off to the brave double-handers, sailing their Class 40 and MUM 36. It's an incredible endeavor. The trimarans start half an hour behind the monohulls, and Maserati immediately bears away at the start mark. We understand she may have had a problem with one of her foils in the pre-start and may not have heard the course that was read. As she bears away through the spectator fleet, people got a much closer look at her than they may have intended. Lovewater took full advantage of this lapse, rounding Mark 1 well ahead before having her own problems unfurling her headsail. It's a truly wonderful sight to see these two trimarans in Cape Town. Lovewater, a VPLP 80, and Maserati, a foiling VPLP 70. As Lovewater round the bottom mark, the wind dies off completely in a transition hole behind the massive Table Mountain. And Maserati, approaching that same hole, slows down. As luck would have it, and with 3,600 miles ahead, that hole affected Maserati far worse, and she floundered for about 15 minutes. Once she got through the transition zone, it was time to pin back her ears and make up that lost time, and an incredible battle awaits these two as they tear across the South Atlantic. Thank you, Lovewater and Maserati, for coming to Cape Town and being a part of this fantastic race. And to all 22 entries who dared to dream for the adventure of a lifetime, have an absolute blast, and we look forward to seeing you in Rio.